Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Murmur Murders Podcast. If you enjoy deep dives or thought-provoking true crime shows, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you, because this ain't it. But if you do enjoy true crime stories told in 30 minutes or less with a dash of humor and well-timed puns, whether you're on your way to work, taking a quick break, or if you have nothing else better to do with your life, then maybe, just maybe, this is the podcast for you. You can find this podcast on all the major platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and many others. Make sure to follow me on social media platforms such as Instagram and Twitter at Murmur Murders. That's MURMURMURDERS. Hope to hear from you, and until next time on the Murmur Murders Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Sengel.
Hello.
Hi.
I like your face.
I like your face.
Thank you. It still might have pieces of a face mask on it.
Okay, so we today are going to be talking about the second of your topic ideas for the month of August.
Which I already forgot, and I'm very excited to find out what it was.
So this one is going to be about the history of going Dutch.
Yeah! This actually works out pretty well because I'm about to go on a couple dates. So I need to read up. And by read up, I mean listen to you.
Listen to me, and I will tell you all the things.
Because you read up.
I did all the reading.
I don't need to read anymore. I got you.
You have me.
Just stop reading everything. Menus, texts, emails. Be like, Lindsay, what does this say?
You don't need me to do that anymore. You got someone else who can read your shit for you.
They might leave if I do that.
He'll be like, all right, bitch, bye.
Like, all right, I tolerated the cat. That's kind of a jerk. And the dog that pushes me off the bed.
Your cat is kind of a bitch. In the best way.
Yeah. She's like sassy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like never really malicious. But she does like this. It's just a very typical cat thing of like, this is my house. And
yeah.
Like, I love you. And then I'm going to bite your face. And then I'm going to walk away.
And then later I'm going to snuggle up against you and be purring super loud and expect you to rub my tummy.
Yep.
Like nothing happened.
But then I'm going to bite you again and then hide above the fridge because that's what I do.
Yep. So
going Dutch. Let's do this.
History of going Dutch. So information for this episode was pulled from a 2018 Atlas Obscura article by Anne Eubank, a 2017 Today I Found Out article by Melissa, a 2011 The Times of India article by Hadley Shamaya, and Wikipedia.
Nice.
Because Wikipedia. And I usually try to have at least 5 sources for every episode.
That's good to know, actually. I kind of wondered.
But yeah, I try to have like 5 to 6 sources for all the episodes that I do just to make sure that I'm getting
like a well-rounded
swath of information. But there wasn't a whole lot on this, so that's why I stuck with just the 4. And I felt like with the sources that I did use, it was enough information where I didn't need to dig deeper, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
So I will have links to all these articles in the show notes, as I normally do. So let's get started. So going Dutch is described as an informal agreement that each person will pay for his or her own expenses during a gathering, typically a date.
Okay. So in general.
In general. And this phrase dates all the way back to the 17th century.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're going to go into the history of how this kind of came about.
Cool.
So as I mentioned, in the 17th century, the English and Dutch Republic competed for international trade, dominion over the seas, and of course, colonies.
Yeah, because why not?
Yep.
I want to own all the things. No, I want to own all the things.
You can't own all the things because I want them.
Man.
So starting in 1652, The English and Dutch spent 22 years fighting 3 separate Anglo-Dutch wars.
Jeez. 22 years.
22 years.
Oh my gosh.
And not only that, but they fought over everything from fish, specifically herring, to what is now present day New York, the state.
That's just kind of funny. Like they were so petty, like they were super petty about fish, but then they were also like, but like I own everything where the fish is. So let's fight every year. You wonder if they had like truces or like timeouts. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know.
Wartime. Can we have a timeout for our holidays?
Yeah.
22 years is a long time to be fighting. An active fight?
Yeah, they had 3 active actual wars, and the rest were more just kind of like disagreements.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's dedication. Like you kind of respect it, but also like stop.
Yeah. So both of these countries circulated tons of propaganda about the other.
Of course. Talking trash. That's part of any war.
Yep. And even went so far into pettiness to consider plagues and fires in each other's country as a form of punishment from God himself.
We still do that today.
Yeah, this is true. That hasn't changed.
No. If anything, Twitter made it worse.
Yeah, no shit. And just like a couple of school kids, their feud quickly devolved into name calling.
Nice.
Which they would spread throughout their countries and territories with pamphlets and wood cuttings.
I really want to see the wood cuttings.
Right? I bet they were fabulous.
Like, I wonder if like people were fat or like...
I'm going to have to Google it because I really hope there are some really good ones out there that I can use.
This was Dutch versus who?
The English.
And what war was it?
The Anglo-Dutch Wars. And the Dutch stated that the English were descendants of the devil himself and were born with tails. And the English responded by calling the Dutch butterboxes and drunks.
Butterboxes? Is that calling somebody fat?
I don't know, because no matter how much I looked, I could not find what butterbox actually means, other than it's just a derogatory term for Dutch people. Like, I looked.
Weird.
And so this long-standing hatred continued even after the wars came and went. And as the centuries progressed, the word Dutch morphed into a term to describe something as being subpar.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate burn.
Yeah. So by 1654, the first use of Dutch as a derogatory term was used in R. Whitlock's Zworia. It's Zwourouia. I don't know.
No clue.
It was stated as, quote, "The contract is not, like Dutch bargains, made in drink," which insinuates that you can't make any sort of bargain without being drunk.
Dang. The English are savages.
Yeah. And examples of this included the belief that Dutch soldiers needed, quote, Dutch courage, aka liquor, in order to fight. The term Dutch uncle means a stern and authoritarian figure. A Dutch palate means low class. Dutch feasts are parties where the host gets wasted before everybody else. Dutch reckoning is used to describe unexpected charges on an unitemized bill.
Dang.
And lastly, Dutch comfort is a term that means that a bad situation can't get any worse.
Wow. Okay, I am so... First off, as a mostly English more than Dutch descendant, sorry. Like, those are some crazy burns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would be interested if we have any Dutch listeners, like what type of Dutch slang
they have about the English.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to find out like what sort of derogatory terms they have for English people, because there has to be something, but we just don't know because we're dumb and don't know their language.
Yeah, there probably
those
is.
Are really intense burns. Like those are nasty.
Yeah. So long story short, Dutch basically meant that whatever it was describing was considered inferior or the opposite of whatever it was describing.
Terrible.
And it was often crude or just overall mean. And even with all of this, the term "to go Dutch" is actually an American one.
So we just couldn't let it go.
Well, so here we go. So one of the first uses of this term was found in an 1877 New York Times article where they referenced a quote unquote Dutch treat, which in essence means you're not treating someone at all, with the insinuation being that people of Dutch descent are naturally stingy.
So mean.
Yep.
Oh, man.
And in the 17th and 18th centuries, many German-speaking groups immigrated to the U.S. and settled primarily in Pennsylvania, hence the term Pennsylvania Dutch. And there are a few different reasons that these Germans were referred to as Dutch. In English, if you were High Dutch, you were from parts of Germany and nearby mountainous regions.
High Dutch.
High Dutch.
Okay. No. Sorry, I had to take a brief willy break.
It's okay. Low Dutch were people who hailed from the Netherlands. So basically low class.
Nice.
Yep. And in the U.S., the Pennsylvania Dutch grew a reputation for not owing anyone anything, to the point that even when part of a group of friends, they would insist on paying their own portion of the bill. So
like no gifts, like don't treat me differently. I'll always pay for it.
Yep.
Got it.
So whether there's any real facts to back up this claim, terming something as Dutch became synonymous with this idea, which eventually morphed into terms such as a Dutch treat, which was first printed in 1873.
Yep.
A Dutch lunch, which was first printed in 1897, and the term Go Dutch, which was first printed in 1914. So the first printed instance of Dutch treat appeared in a Daily Democrat article on June 27th, 1873, and is the following, quote, "If our temperance friends could institute what is called the Dutch treat into our saloons, each man paying his reckoning, it would be a long step towards reforming and drinking to excess," end quote. So in that way, it was termed as like a positive thing, because it's like, if people only paid for their own stuff, they wouldn't be drunkards, basically.
Right.
The term Dutch lunch was first seen in Fort Wayne's Morning Journal on October 24th, 1897, as follows, quote, "Perhaps you have a fatter pocketbook than some of the other fellows. I, for instance, can't afford to buy 2 tickets every time I go. So some of the boys and I go on the Dutch lunch plan. Everybody for himself," end quote.
Also positive-ish, because like he was already calling out himself that he wasn't wealthy.
Yeah, like if he couldn't afford to pay for 2 people, so he would just pay for himself.
All right, we're getting there.
Yep.
Changing the narrative.
Yep. And even though 90% of the time these terms were used figuratively, every once in a while they are meant in the literal sense. For example, in an 1894 newspaper report by Michael Quinion, who was an esteemed etymologist of the publication Worldwise Words, noted that a, quote, Dutch supper should include rye bread, cabbage salad, wienerwurst, and beer.
All right, that works.
Yeah. So even though the idea of a derogatory Dutch term started as British insults.
I feel like a lot of things in history start as British insults.
Pretty much, yeah. It's believed that in 19th and 20th century America, they took on a less offensive connotation in reference to Pennsylvania Dutch. In fact, going Dutch when out dining is now considered a form of etiquette in the Western world.
Yep.
And on the flippity flop, if you're, quote, sharing Dutch, you're actually sharing joint ownership of some luxury good, such as a plane, boat, car, or other high-end product. By, quote, sharing Dutch, you're reducing the overall expense of the gift by splitting the cost.
So would that be more of like a couple going in on a car, or is that more of like knowing your sibling has a Christmas present and then everybody chips in to buy that Christmas present?
Yes, so that'd be considered sharing Dutch. Or like even having roommates for an apartment, that would be considered sharing Dutch because you're both paying for the same service or good.
Got it. Okay.
And obviously using the word Dutch has consequences.
Yep.
And even today, the Dutch government has issued orders to its officials that they should avoid all use of the word, if possible, to stop the stigma.
That makes sense. I mean, like, how long has it been?
Since the 1600s?
Yeah.
The 17th century?
Like it takes a long time for things to come out of our
vernacular.
Yeah. So.
And I decided to delve even further.
Ooh, I'm listening.
I went international with this because what we consider going Dutch isn't the same around the world.
Okay. That makes sense, especially if like their relationship with the Dutch, like, did you try to conquer me? Or
so the idea of going Dutch has different meanings depending on where you are in the world.
Okay.
So for example, in countries such as Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, or Cyprus, it's considered rude to ask for separate bills, especially when you're part of a large group.
Now, pardon my ignorance, but isn't it more of a thing where you fight over the bill? Like who gets to pay the overall?
Yes. And typically, and I kind of go into that more with some of the other countries, but typically it's considered the host's responsibility.
So whoever like invited people?
Yes, to cover the costs.
I could see that.
Yep. And in France, on romantic dates, it is a given that the man should pay, or the woman, if it's,
or the baby.
Whoever is the person who invited the other out.
Yes.
On the romantic date is expected to pay. And in a business setting, the host party traditionally pays for everyone, and it's considered rude of them not to.
Yeah. I mean, that's still very real.
Yeah. I mean, even here, like if you're going on a business lunch, it's expected that your boss is going to cover it, unless noted otherwise.
Right.
And in Middle Eastern countries, going Dutch is considered rude, and traditionally the host will cover the cost when they feel they are able to afford the expense. And due to complex societal pressures in countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Iran, the practice wasn't adopted originally, but has since become popular and accepted.
Okay.
And in North Korea, where social systems are very rigid, it's common that the person with the highest social standing will pay the bill.
That makes sense.
Yep. And among younger generations, friends will often alternate who pays the bill, sometimes with one covering the cost of food while the other pays for drinks, as an example.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. In the People's Republic of China, during a group meal, they adhere to the same rules as in North Korea, where whoever has the highest social standing will cover the cost of the group. And in Latin American countries, such as Chile, they believe in pooling their funds to cover the cost of the meal when in a group rather than splitting the meal equally. So basically...
Yeah, I kind of like that too, of like, if you want to cover someone, but want to be more subtle about it, you could leave like a 20 or 2 20s instead of like 10 plus whatever tip.
Yeah. Because like I remember doing that in college when we would go out to like Perkins as a group or something. And it'd be like, okay, well, I have you this time,
I can cover the tip. If you want to split it, I can cover the tip.
Exactly. And that's just kind of how it would shake out. So that in a nutshell is the history of going Dutch.
Cool. That's interesting. Like, I kind of figured it would have had some nasty connotations just because, like, even in the United States, even where we grew up, like, there was a difference if you were Dutch. There was like, oh, you're Dutch. Like, oh, you're better. And like more highbrow, which isn't the case and is totally a problem. And the fact that this has been going on since probably before the 1600s, to be honest, like that's just crazy. Because, I mean, to the Dutch, I'm sorry. I think you're great. I will not call you a butterbox, even though I just said the word. I'm not going to say it again.
That is the most bizarre thing.
It's so weird.
And I have no idea what it means. So if anyone out there has any idea what that actually means, please tell me, because I could not find it anywhere.
Because they said it was created by sailors. But I wonder if like they were making fun of like slippery fingers, like they would fumble or something.
No clue. Unsolved mystery. No idea.
To the ghost of Robert Stack, if you could go on a spirit box and tell us what that means, and then
great.
Have the theme song because we love you. Do, 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 do.
And because I like having the shit scared out of me.
Right. Be like, Robert Stack answered us. He knows what butterbox means.
He's so smart.
He'll go to all of his 16th century sailor friends and be like, Hey, minor celebrity Robert Stack.
I have a question for you.
These two girls from the future have a question.
Yep. And I like solving mysteries.
He loved solving mysteries.
Yeah. In his trench coat.
Mm-hmm. The first time I saw him in a movie, I freaked out. He had such a minor role, but I was like, what is Robert Stack doing there? Like, there's no 800 number behind him. What's going on?
Has this whole movie been a reenactment?
Right. Is this a dream? Cool. Well, thank you for looking that up. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So this week's podcast shout out is going to be the Murmur Murders podcast from our friend John.
That's such a good name.
Yep.
Kudos to you.
And he's pretty great. Where's my breadstick, bitch? And he will get that reference. And he'll probably be the only one that gets that reference. But the Murmur Murders podcast is just this really fun weekly podcast where he talks about different murders and his own unique, fun take on them. And they're usually not pretty long. They're not very long. They're, usually around 30 minutes. So pretty quick listens, but it's just, he offers these really fun, unique insights for all these stories that he's sharing that I think are refreshing and funny. Nice. So please check him out. I will include a link to his podcast in the show notes. And shout out, John. You're great.
Thank you, John. You're the best.
I like your stuff.
You get that breadstick.
You get that breadstick at Olive Garden.
You get that breadstick.
When you're here, your family. All right. This week's question.
We have another question?
Mm-hmm. Comes from Cindy at the Welcome to the Neighborhood podcast.
That's such a cute name.
I know. And she wants to know what our favorite horror movie is.
Oh, no. Okay, so for me, I'm a total baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Same.
A big old baby.
Same.
And I don't really watch horror.
Same.
Just because I'm the type of person that literally like absorbs all of it and then has nightmares for like a year.
Yeah.
Over like one really bad movie that I know is terrible and like is not real. And the gore was very much like rapid fire Kool-Aid in a hose or something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Like nightmares forever. So I don't really have a favorite, but I did actually watch Dr. Sleep.
Never seen that.
It's new. It's with Ewan McGregor. It's the like Stephen King sequel to The Shining.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Really well done. Like, of course, definitely had some stress dreams from that afterwards. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't that bad, but I really enjoyed that. And so I think that's the first thing that kind of comes to mind. It's not really my favorite because I don't have a favorite because I'm a big old baby and stick to like comedies and cooking shows.
Yeah.
So, that's mine. What about you?
I was trying to think about this because I also don't watch a lot of horror movies. And it's because even though I could read about murder all day long.
Oh, yeah. In detail. Like you could read the gore detail and you can listen to it.
Yep.
Yeah, podcast.
There's something about, for me, I get really anxious when I know something is going to happen. Like when they're building up to like a jump scare, like, it's coming, but I get really anxious to the point where like my heart actually hurts, like my chest hurts. So for me, it's something where it's like, it's almost like I can't watch that kind of stuff because it's a physical discomfort for me. And it makes me very concerned. I seriously am legit with all the heart problems in our family, concerned that I will have a heart attack if I'm watching a horror movie. So yeah, that being said,
super fun.
The one movie that I really actually enjoyed watching that I would consider horror, I'm going to have to look it up. Maybe you can look it up for me. It was a Guillermo del Toro movie. It had Tom Hiddleston in it. It's Something Hill.
Oh.
I feel like it's Something Hill.
Crimson Peak?
Crimson Peak. Thank you. That is the one.
I could not watch that.
Really?
I couldn't do it. I started watching it and then there was like one jump scare and I was like, nope. I will see you never. And I went to, Guillermo del Toro had like a traveling exhibit and I went to see it and I loved every second of it and did not get scared. But nope, I can't watch it.
Yep.
I couldn't get through it. Wow. I'm impressed by you now.
Thank you.
There's a lot of blood in that.
Yeah, there was a lot of blood in that. If we are going to go old school horror, I did watch The Omen. So that would be my old school horror movie that is my favorite, is The Omen. I did it all for you, Damien. I did it all for you. So those are my two horror movies that I would say are my favorite from old school and more recent.
Yeah, I just have the most recent one because I feel like even with the old school movies, I've only watched them in portions because I can't.
Yeah.
And there's
but it's one of those things too where it's like I listen to some podcasts where they like will watch and discuss horror movies, and I'm cool with that kind of stuff. Like I'll listen to them talking about it and be like, oh, that's not so bad. Maybe I should watch it. And then as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, no, I can't watch it because even though it doesn't sound that bad, I know there's going to be a lot of jump scare shit in there that's really going to hurt my heart. Even if I go in knowing everything about the movie, there will be parts that will get me and I will regret everything.
Yep. The movie that I'm thinking of that I couldn't get through because I'm a big old baby was Brightburn.
I have never heard of that movie.
Oh, it's the basically the anti-Superman.
Okay.
It's about he basically like, so it's what's her name? Elizabeth Banks.
Okay.
And David Denman, who played Pam's first fiance.
Okay. Yeah.
They couldn't have a baby. And then like this alien, they lived on a farm. This alien crash happened and there was a baby and they were like, oh, I love him. And then they like took him and like everything's fine until he hits puberty and then he starts to get his powers and he is so vicious. Like I was able to stick with it until there's a scene where like he's attacking his uncle in a pickup truck.
Uh-oh.
There's something that happens to the uncle and like I was watching it with my parents, like because they've been getting more into horror because we hated it, so they like didn't watch it for us because we're delicate flowers. But as soon as there was like this pivotal part in the scene, if anybody's watched this movie, they know. I literally squealed like a little girl and started crying and had to leave. I was like, I'm not watching this anymore.
Oh my God.
Like, and it has like eye stuff.
Oh,
and
no.
like, it's so bad. It's like, it's so good, you know, like it's incredible, like how it was directed and it's visually stunning, but like, you know, what's going to happen. And there's a lot of jump scares and there's some really, really intensive, like gore that I think I probably got through like the first 40 minutes. Like maybe that might've even been sooner, but like the second the uncle who, he's been in a lot of like, his name is Matt L. Jones. He's been in a lot of like CBS sitcoms as like the dopey, tall, like uncle or dad or brother that's like high all the time. And so when he was getting messed up by this like main character, I was like, I can't. It's so intense. But yeah, if you really want to like lose your mind and then never sleep again, watch Brightburn.
Good to know. I will never watch it.
Yeah, it has 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's honestly probably because it's like, it's just so messed up. It's a superhero horror movie. I think Thomas would like it if he hasn't watched it already. But yeah, I don't recommend it for you because you might die. I almost died. I just left. I was like, I can't be here anymore.
See, and I did the stupid thing several years ago and was like, hey, Thomas, let's watch Paranormal Activity together. Oh. And I did, and I regretted it because I had nightmares for like a month.
Right, because it's so subtle. It's so subtle. Like, so you can always, like when you wake up, you're like, I see all of the things. There's somebody in my closet. There's somebody.
And there were definitely like parts where it's like, yeah, that's super fake. Like with the Ouija board, like that was like, yeah, all right, whatever. But you're right. There were the subtle things where I was like, oh, fucking shit. The thing that got me the worst, did you watch it?
Yes, I did. With mom and dad again.
The sound of the footsteps getting super loud running up the stairs and then the door slamming. That part got me so hard, like nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Nightmares. All right. All right. Now I need something good now. So
well, let's talk about good things.
So I've been taking Kona to obedience classes. As a refresher for people who may not know about Kona, she is my rescue. She's about 8 to 9 months old. We don't quite know for sure how old she is. She's extremely intelligent, and she's been in obedience classes for about a month now.
And why didn't we have them really meet before obedience?
The last time that we had Kona and Willie in the same space, it was after we'd had her for like 4 days. And
yep, like clearly too soon.
And we very quickly realized that she did not like other dogs. And
especially bigger ones, because Willie he's a big guy. He's a golden retriever. He's about 75 pounds.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Big boy.
So that was a problem. And so I was understandably kind of nervous about starting obedience training because obviously there are other dogs at obedience training. And
you've noticed the things at walks too, right? Of her just like kind of overreacting a little bit to dogs.
Yeah. So she would freak out whenever she'd see other dogs. She's got a really high prey instinct. So she will pull a lot when she sees like squirrels and birds. And basically if there's quick movement in like the bushes, she will go to attention and be like, I want that. I don't know what it is, but I want to attack it and put it in my mouth. Mm-hmm. So she's gotten much, much better with that. I don't want to start any sort of like weird internet debate, but we use a prong collar, which is different from a choke collar. And we've had a lot of success with it with my previous rescue dog, Chimera. And that's what they use at the obedience class, because it just kind of gives them a quick reminder that if you pull really hard and try to do something you're not supposed to do, it's going to be uncomfortable. So you need to not do that.
It's part of her breed too. Like her breed has a tougher skin and tougher neck to handle it. Whereas like if I were to do that for Willie, he's all like flabby and it would be really painful.
Yeah. So yeah, because she's got some pit
and you
in
don't
her.
use it all the time. Like you don't keep it on in the house.
Nope. We only use it during walks. Like she doesn't wear it in the house. It's strictly for walks.
And you also live in like a cornucopia of like
nature.
You basically live in Snow White.
Yeah, I am basically fucking Snow White. Like there are chipmunks and birds and rabbits and squirrels.
Deer that just like go into her backyard at any point.
And eat all my hostas.
There have been bears. Anything you imagine is in the Midwest is in her neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like frogs and like any type of bugs.
And toads. And I have possums and groundhogs and raccoons.
So it's more for that. It's more to like keep her from getting something and getting infected with things. Mm-hmm.
And also to teach her that sort of behavior is not okay. Yep. So if she were to get out of the house, it wouldn't be an issue of, great, now I have a lost dog that's probably going to get hit by a truck because I live in an area with lots of trucks. So it's also to try to teach her to be safe and not do that kind of stuff. And
she doesn't pull a lot anyway. Like she learns, it takes every walk. Like Willie's the same way.
She is night and day better from when we first adopted her since using the collar. But anyway, so we've been going to obedience class, and the first couple sessions, obviously it's like culture shock because there's tons of different kinds of dogs. There's like 20 other dogs in our class. And even though, yes, it is COVID, everyone wears masks. We're in like basically a pole barn for this class. So we all are able to... You
can't have your own like little quadrant.
Yep. So we are able to socially distance when we are training. And it's always been that way, even pre-pandemic.
Yeah, that's how we had an extra obedience class with Willie, and that was the same way where you had like 10 feet. You had your own little square.
Yeah, we have a lot of space to move around.
Very rarely interacted with others.
Yeah.
Unless it was on the docket to train.
So the first couple of classes, she was a little like, oh my God, and kind of freaked out. And the last couple, she's been, going up to other dogs and sniffing them and letting them sniff her and being okay with it. And the last couple of classes, she's been getting friendly with a golden that happens to be in the class. And granted, he's closer to her age. He's like a little over a year, whereas Willie's like...
He's 5. He's a seasoned middle-aged gentleman.
Yeah. So the last class we had prior to the get-together with my family for Maddie's birthday, we sat next to the Golden prior to class starting, and Riley got close to Kona, the whole smelling thing, and he was like licking her face, and she was okay with it. They obviously did the whole crotch smell thing, as dogs do. Yeah. And then right before I kind of was going to go call her back, she got into the play position. Like, let's do this. Ooh. Let's play like front paws down, butt in the air, tail wagging. Like, let's do this. And I took that as a really, really good sign.
Wow.
So
yeah, because she like just kind of a little example of the way she was with Willie when they first met. We met in a park for her youngest daughter's birthday party. We had a social distance party, and we were walking within like 6-8 feet from each other, and she would not stop growling or crying or barking and pulling to try to like bite his ankles. Like, she was face off. And any single time anyone approached him, like even if it was like my parents who know him or me, she would growl and be like, he's dangerous. Like, don't.
Yeah.
Like, she was trying to protect all the people thinking that Willie was aggressive when he's literally like a cat.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care and is very sweet.
Yeah. He's a big old baby.
That's like night and day that she wanted to play and didn't care.
Yep. So when we brought her to my folks this weekend, obviously we introduced them they have a fenced in backyard, and we introduced them
a big one.
We introduced them with their leashes on. So if I did need to pull her back right away because there were issues, I could do that. And it was totally fine. Like, they did the whole smelling thing.
They did really well.
And then she spent the whole day basically just kind of like following him around. Like, he was kind of showing her how to be a dog. Like, she was just
so cute. She had like googly eyes the whole time.
Yeah.
And she would like she would mimic his movements. Willie has a baby pool that he loves to swim in when he gets overheated from playing ball. And so her oldest daughter helped her like get into the pool to like know that what it feels like and that it's okay. And she actually voluntarily went in the pool a couple of times, which was a big deal because it was really gross. Like, Willie gets it nasty in like 2 seconds.
Well, and she was like curious, like, well, why does he keep going in here? What's in here? So it went really well. It made me feel good about future get-togethers, knowing that they will both be able to be in the same room together without like riling each other up to the point where we have to separate them. And that's something we had to do with my last dog, because they would be playing so much to the point where they were like wearing each other out, and we'd have to put them in separate rooms so they could like calm down and breathe. Yeah,
because Chimera loved so much and loved to play so much, she didn't know when to stop. And Willie wears out really easily, and he gets snappy when you antagonize him. And she didn't know that she was like, Chimera was having the time of her life, and Willie was like, I will kill you.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful for like future gatherings, because since Willie is a service dog, I do bring him to your house if I can, and I bring him everywhere. So the fact that in like 4 weeks, 5 weeks,
4 weeks,
4 weeks, they're already good friends. There was no growling. If there was growling, it was like a play thing of like, let's chase each other. So yeah, that was probably the best part of my birthday, was knowing that our dogs get along. And my parents' little dogs have yet to accept Kona, but it took them 5 very carefully curated visits to tolerate Willie. So you'll have to do that like later on, where like mom and dad had leashes. We went to the park down by their house as like a neutral zone. Yeah. And like the whole time, my parents have Maltese mixes, Gracie and George, and Gracie is the alpha, and she's got a big bark. She's got little dog syndrome, only she actually like carries it out. So it's kind of funny, because all the big dogs that she's ever encountered have been like, what?
Yeah, they're like,
she's just like, I'm gonna murder you with my face.
And they're just like, bitch, what are you doing?
Yeah. And George he attacks because she attacks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Otherwise, he doesn't care.
No, he really doesn't care at all. He's such a neutral dude. So that will be to be determined. But I think that'll happen too with time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we have friends. Yay. Our children are friends. Mm-hmm. Very nice. Thank you for the tangent. You should put like a heads up. We're going to go into dog talk for like 15 minutes.
So you can find us online at yeoldecrimepodcast.com and follow us on social media at Ye Olde Crime Pod on Twitter and Ye Olde Crime Podcast on Instagram. You can also email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear what you think of the show, any stories you'd like to share, or, you can just tell us that we're pretty.
Just say hi.
Help us name our plague doctor mascot, because
I vote Hank. You should agree with me or get out.
No, I don't like Hank.
You don't like Hank?
I don't like Hank. I want something different. He doesn't look like a Hank to me.
He looks like a Hank.
No, he's handsomer than a Hank. Okay,
we'll leave it to the people.
Yeah, you guys need to let us know what we should call him.
Because we're definitely siblings and we're already arguing about it.
We're already arguing about what to name him. It's not going to be Hank.
It's totally fucking Hank.
If you're enjoying the podcast so far, please consider giving us a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or you can do it on Podchaser, wherever you listen, as it helps us out. And if you want more content, like some bonus content, you can become a member on our Patreon, which you can find at Ye Olde Crime Podcast on Patreon. And as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Madison.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.